We have no public comment.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We'll be back out for our open session at 6:30. On the globe icon below on the Zoom screen or at Dijon, you can go to the corner of the room to get materials. Para acceder a traducción, aprieten el botón del globo en Zoom o aquí en Dijon pueden ir a la esquina del gimnasio para los materiales. We are returning from our closed session. After our opening procedures, the public will have the opportunity to make public comment. The board recently voted to change public comment format. We have opportunities on non-agenda items in person, through the Zoom app, and by telephone at the beginning of the meeting. Public comment will last now 1 hour. The time allotted for each speaker is 2 minutes. If you're attending the meeting in person, you will need to submit a request to address the board form to indicate your desire to speak on an agenda item. After it's been turned into staff, they are placed in order of when they are turned in. We also call on speakers one at a time and switch between public comment at Dijon and one on Zoom. If participating via Zoom, you will need to raise your hand by clicking on the appropriate icon in the Zoom app or by pressing *9 if accessing the meeting by phone. No yielding of time or substitution of speakers is permitted. The public will also have an opportunity to make public comment on agenda items after the staff presentation for each discussion and action item. The public will have 10 minutes per item and 1 minute per speaker. Due to the Brown Act, board members cannot discuss items that are not on the agenda and do not usually respond to items presented in public comment. Now, let's move to our opening procedures. First, we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody, please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And now for a land acknowledgement. We recognize that we're presently on the lands of the Chochenyo, Muwekma, Karka, and Ohlone peoples and acknowledge them as the first inhabitants of the land we currently occupy. Before we do our roll call, Dr. Hurst, could you please introduce our wonderful new student trustees?
Absolutely. We're so excited to have our two student trustees with us. I'd first like to take the opportunity to introduce Tristan Callop. Tristan Callop is a senior at Middle College. He has goals of becoming a pharmaceutical scientist. He also wants to attend UC. His hobbies are cross country, also going to the gym. He loves baking. He loves cooking almost anything, but his favorite things to cook: fried chicken, pasta, and he loves baking chocolate chip cookies and brownies. And I did ask both of them why did they want to become a student trustee, and what Tristan said is that he loves having an active role as current class president. He loves gaining knowledge from students. He loves listening to students and then putting everything that they share into action. And he wants to have impact. And he really talked about that word impact and what he wants to do. He loves advocacy, listening to student voice as well. So we'd like to take the opportunity to welcome student trustee Tristan Callop. Hoorah. And then next, we'd like to recognize student trustee Anaya Cypressert. She's also a senior. She attends De Anza High School, and she has a goal of being a business economics major. She's very interested in moving to Southern Cal. She had mentioned 2 schools that she would like to attend, but I got lost when she said USC, and that's all I could think about is USC. So, and I talked about me being an alumni as well. She wants to possibly be an investment banker or into real estate as well. She also loves cooking. She loves baking. She loves spending time with her friends. And her favorite thing to cook is mac and cheese. One of the things she said as well is she talked about her ongoing role as ASB VP. And also she talked about being very vocal. She wanted me to understand that she's not afraid to speak her opinion and to share her voice. And she's really looking forward to that here. And she also spoke about impact and wanting to have a tremendous impact in this role. So again, we welcome student trustee Anaya Cypress-Sert. Welcome. And this time I turn it back over to the board president.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hurst. Trustee Caleb and Trustee Cypress-Sert, I would like to welcome both of you on behalf of the board. I heard some amazing things. I don't want to say expect baked goods, but sounds like you're really good at it. And Trustee Cypress-Sert, Trustee Clerk Smith-Folds also makes some really good mac and cheese. So we might have to have a little competition. But I just want to thank both of you because this is obviously very time consuming. You have a lot of different things that you're doing at your schools, but this is really important. You obviously represent the voice of our students. So please never feel like you shouldn't raise an issue because you represent close to 30,000 students in our district. So thank you so much for being here. And I'll see if any of my colleagues would like to say anything before we move forward. Clerk Smith-Folds?
Good evening. I just want to say welcome. It's hard, but it's not impossible. Enjoy your time here. It's a short time. Soon as you get going, it's like, oh no, this is my last meeting. So enjoy it. Make sure that you use your agency that you're given and the privilege that you're getting to sit up here and to represent all the students. You work for them, right? They are trusting you to bring their voice to the board. So don't be afraid to use it. Reach out if you need any help because we're here to serve. And traditionally, student trustees ask the best questions and give the best comments. So no pressure, but you guys really do make us step up our game. So welcome, and I look forward to working with you and being a colleague to you. I'm complete.
Thank you, Clerk Smith-Folds. Okay, Dr. Hurst, could you please do our official roll call?
Absolutely. President Gonzalez-Hoy,
Present?
trustee Clerk Smith-Folds,
Good evening, everyone. Present.
trustee Christian,
Present.
trustee Reckler,
Good evening to everyone. I'm present.
trustee Phillips. Don't see him here at this time. Trustee Cypress-Sert
Present.
and trustee Caleb.
Present.
All present with one member absent.
Thank you, Dr. Hurst. Dr. Hurst, do we have anything to report from our closed session?
Yes, we do, sir. In closed session regarding agenda item Alpha 2.1, the board voted to reject claim 624-939 related to alleged personal injury and property damage. The vote was as follows: trustee Reckler, yes; trustee Smith-Folds, yes; trustee Christian, yes; President Gonzalez-Hoy, yes; when with trustee Phillips absent. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hurst. Okay, now we're gonna move to public comment. So anyone in the public who'd like to make a comment, this is now gonna be the time. People in the audience, please make sure you turn in your request to address the request to address the board form, which is in the table on my right-hand side. And then people on Zoom, please make sure you raise your hand. We are public, it's 2 minutes, and we can get started. Ms. Munoz, thank you.
Our first public comment is Santiago Mendoza.
Hello, my name is Santiago Mendoza. I'm a resident from San Pablo, California. Also, I've been in Richmond, California. Pretty much I'm here just to put my voice out there about we just need a little bit more help from the school district with giving the residents here access to the soccer fields. You know, not only us, also the football players. You know, right now, I remember like 5 or 3 years ago, we had our football team, Richmond Steelers. They were able to practice in Kennedy or Richmond High, and now they're practicing out here in the parks where there's no lines for them. So when they go and play in their football games, they're going to be lost. And also for us kids that are playing, you know, play soccer, you know, I remember 2 years ago, you know, we were able to have access. And right now the city of Richmond, we just have one field. So you got like 3 clubs that we're over, you know, renting a field. You know, we're not asking it free, but it should be free because, you know, I'm a taxpayer. You know, I work 10 hours a day, union wise. And I know some of my tax money goes to the school district and all that, you know. I remember like 2 years ago, people were able to walk around, you know, after school was over, the field be open, the tracks be open, Kennedy High. I went to Kennedy, that's where I graduated from, out here in Richmond. And now it's kind of sad that I passed through there and there's no action, there's nothing, there's no kids. So how you guys want us to keep our kids out of the streets when this is the only thing they really got after going to school, you know, soccer, sports. And, you know, I'm a coach. I do it voluntarily. I don't get paid for it because I love seeing those kids smile after I work 10 hours hard. And that's what makes me go to work. And that's what cheers me up when I see my kids.
Thank you so much.
Our next public comment is Ms. Etalk. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I am Avril Rabia Etalk and also a parent to 2 elementary kids. I've been teaching for 19 years. I have a master's in education from UC Davis and a national board certified teacher. I am one of the prep teachers impacted by involuntary transfer for the 3rd year. Our school, Hannah Ranch, set up a Fab Lab that I run. Because of the district's actions, our tech program has been eliminated for the 3rd year. Kids and parents are upset about not receiving what was promised to them. The district agreed to come up with a plan last year, but has failed to share one. They say this is temporary. Last year, my temporary transfer ended up the entire school year, and I knew it was a lie when I saw my job no longer posted on EdJoin in October. I am losing trust and confidence in West Contra Costa as their decisions do not align with their mission to attract and retain quality teachers, and they continue to violate the contract. We are becoming a Band-Aid for a much bigger problem, and students are suffering by deterring quality teachers from working here. This summer, HR told me I would be at Hannah and Ohlone, and I gave up my children's spot for childcare. Now I'm expected to immediately find care for my kids and elderly disabled mom. After pleading to HR, she remained apathetic and firm to my reassignment, recommending I go on leave as my only other option. And now they are down another quality teacher. The district will keep losing teachers by mistreating, overworking, and disrespecting their staff. I was given 1 work day before school starts with no time to rearrange my life to teach at an unfamiliar school far from my home and uncompensated. District, do you really want to continue to poach from within? Parents, do you really want an unprepared teacher forced to teach your child? Community, do you really want to represent a district that treats teachers so poorly? I am asking for the district to come up with a plan to retain and recruit quality teachers and be transparent to the public about what is really going on.
Thank you so much.
Our next public comment is Alon Harrison.
Good afternoon, board, and thank you and welcome back to school. I would like to just share some experience I had the first week of school, and it was pleasant. We had at Richmond High, I say we, even though my children are graduated, Richmond High had a nice welcome for the African-American and Black parents, and I felt that was really good. They didn't wait till an issue happened to welcome our parents or to connect with our parents. They did it right out front. And I want to thank the district staff and board members and trustees that showed up to show out for our parents. So thank you, Jamila and Dr. Hurst, for showing up day 3 in school for our parents. And also I would like to recognize some community-based organizations who welcomed our parents back into school. New Life Movement, Bendrick, thank you for that. And Brighter Futures, Ivory, thank you for that. This is an opportunity for people who identify as Black and African American to get welcome into our school institution without there being a big issue, without there being problems. And I just want to thank Dr. Hurst, for making sure that your staff is getting APACs and BSU started. So I'm going everywhere and people are saying, we're getting started, and I like to hear that. That shows that you guys are putting effort in on purpose, welcoming our parents. We still have a lot of more work to do. So those of you guys that think I'm just saying all the good stuff, we do have a lot of work to do, but I want to acknowledge the things that are happening in the beginning, and you guys will hear more from me, and thank you.
Thank you.
Our next public comment is Maisha Harris Gash. Please unmute yourself.
Good evening. Hello. My Sheriff's Gash, Kennedy High School teacher, sped teacher, and Kennedy alum. What a difference a year makes. This start of the school year is like a 180 at Kennedy High School. Our master schedule was definitely much better. The kids are in classes. And so I just want to say, like I said, it's a better start than we had last year. I want to say to my staff that I can sense and see and feel, and even through conversations, even for a number of people on our staff, the beginning of this year has been much, much more positive. I want to thank the district for providing the support that we need. Welcome, Ms. McGee, who was our new principal. Thank you for sending Mr. Orozco, Mr. McDonald, and Mr. De Leon in this transition that we're going through. I also want to say I have had some uncomfortability because of some things that are going on and some changes within the SPED department. But with that being said, I'm all about the kids. This is heart work, H-E-A-R-T. This is heart work. And that's why I show up for the kids. You know, the adults, we're going to be adults and have the conversations and discussions that we do. But every day I go to work, it's about these kids. They don't need to know, nor feel, nor have a sense of my uncomfortability with some things, because that's grown-up stuff. But for my students each and every day, it's about them, that when I greet them at the door, good morning, good afternoon, that they know I want to be there, that I want them to be there, and that I am there for them and their success. So once again, it's been a great start to the year so far, and thank you for the support that the district has provided us. And we just look for many, many more great days to come at Kennedy High School. Thank you.
Our next public comment is Kimberly Chamberlain.
Good evening. I am Kimberly Chamberlain, IFPTE Local 21 SSA Chapter President. I would like to say this has been a pretty decent school start off. And I think it has a lot to do with the hard work that everyone on classified, administrative put in this summer. We all worked extremely hard to make sure that our students and staff were placed as best as we possibly could, and that their classes were available to them. I would also like to thank Kennedy High School tech students for coming in and making a huge effort in the IT department this summer. They helped design the EBF, Educational Benefits Form, the paper form that is going out to all the families. I think they did a tremendous job, and I truly appreciate everything that they did. We have had a great return on those forms. So that is a huge shout out to those 3 students. I would also like to thank all of our classified supervisors, managers, coordinators. Without you, we could not be doing our jobs efficiently and effectively. I cannot say all of your names tonight. I'm too hot. So, and I am praying that the air conditioning in all the buildings gets going very well throughout this week. That would be a huge plus. The last thing is I would like to thank very much the new staff that has come on board in the new positions. Ms. Moses, Ms. Johnson, Ms. Neely Johnson, welcome. So far, working with you, I have had nothing but kudos. You've been very straightforward and effective. Thank you. Have a good week.
Our next public comment is Denise Steen. Please unmute yourself.
Good evening, President Gonzalez Hoy, trustees, Dr. Hurst. This is Denise Steen speaking to you on behalf of the WCCAA Board and our members. We had another positive interest-based bargaining session yesterday, and we were able to work respectively together through 4 more of our contract articles. We are confident that we will complete our negotiations for the full contract by December or January. We appreciate, as Kim said, the leadership's cooperation in crafting collaborative language and language that everyone can support. WCCAA has a membership meeting tomorrow, and we're going to be checking in with our members to get the pulse of the site's first 2 weeks, what's going well, and where we need support. We'll have Dr. Greenwood visiting with us to answer HR questions, and Mr. Tanischek will be supporting a few of our site members to tidy up some unfinished business. We're hopeful in light of the direction the cabinet is taking us, from the outline of the principal, VP, AP meetings, to the building of a structured year-long calendar, and to the more active and timely communications that we're receiving from some departments. We anticipate continued collaboration with the cabinet on making our sites academically rich, engaging, and a safe place for all of our students to thrive. On another note, as principal of Collins, I want to shout out, thank you, Dr. Hurst and Liz, for coming out and visiting the site. It's always great to see cabinet members, and a shout out to my staff who made it an absolutely amazing, smooth opening. It's going to be a great year. Thank you for your time.
Our next public comment is Whitney Griswold.
Hello, school board members. My comment is regarding compliance with MRAD. I'm here in volleyball attire tonight because I've played volleyball across the street at the Richmond Recreation Complex for the past 7 years. This Richmond volleyball community has been a very important one to me, and without a public city-supported space to play, we would have no league. It is also because of my volleyball league that I know the value, the friendship, the community that public spaces bring, and our society is better off, safer, and more resilient because of it. The closure of WCCUSD outdoor recreational facilities to the public, despite tax dollars that should entitle access for residents, has been a great loss for all of us. Kids, families, and residents are losing out on spaces to play, socialize, and make human connection, and instead we are spending more time disassociated from one another. What we need is centralized coordination. Per Luis Fries's June 26th email, district staff will open one exterior gate to provide access to playgrounds and outdoor spaces during non-school hours. And the district is currently exploring partnership models to expand access during weekend hours. Please make good on this commitment. Our community needs weeknight and weekend access for outdoor recreation facilities. There needs to be a coordinated effort from the district to make this happen, to ensure that residents have access to the amenities that we pay for. Thank you for all the work that has been done to this end so far, and I look forward to seeing the continued movement towards compliance with MRAD. Our community deserves it. Thank you.
Our next public comment is Guadalupe Enyana. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, good evening, board members. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Hello, board members. My name is Guadalupe Enyana, and I am a parent in WCCUSD. I'm just, really glad that you guys are talking about the MRAD and how we could partner with our field usage and playgrounds. I know that this is a different, conversation that many of our local soccer leagues have been talking about when it comes to field usage, because there's a lack of space. My son currently plays, I'm a soccer mom, so I have two boys that also play competitive soccer. And, we find it hard to play home games, to be able to have visiting teams come in when we don't have field usage. I think that, that's something that WCC has worked towards in providing field usage in the past. And I think it needs to be accessible when it comes to the price, when it comes to how can we partner up with the community that the district serving, the students at the district serving. We're moving towards, community schooling and looking towards what does community schools look like? How could our schools serve our students in our communities? So I think, really emphasizing on a whole child, getting their exercise in and keeping them off the streets, and it being a real pillar of the community, our schools and our neighborhoods. I think it's a must. So thank you for bringing, holding space to have these conversations, and I'm looking forward to seeing Samantha's presentation coming up. So thank you, and that's it.
Our next public comment is Mark Mitchell.
Good evening, President Gonzalez Hoy, Clerk Smith Folds, Superintendent Hurst, Board and Cabinet. I'm Mark Mitchell, and the Executive Director of the United Teachers of Richmond. Our union represents over 1,600 certificated educators in the West Contra Costa District. And I want to say our members are back working full force to serve students and educators in West Contra Costa, and they're delighted to be back with their students. But we do have some speed bumps that we are experiencing collectively, and I know you're all aware of them. Particularly, at least 30 of our members have been involuntarily reassigned in the first weeks of school. And it's a dynamic that's now in its third year of occurring. And this is not a dynamic because we have had declining enrollment or the schools are closing. It's because the district has been unable to recruit enough permanent certificated educators to fill every classroom to serve our students. We believe there's between 80 and 93 vacancies currently in our bargaining unit, and it's just not a sustainable situation. So we're really looking forward to solving that with Dr. Johnson, our newly arrived Assistant Associate Superintendent of Human Resources, and her staff and others in the district. We are very gratified by some of the appointments Dr. Hurst has made for this year, and we look forward to working with Kim Moses and Sonia Neely Johnson and some of the other excellent education professionals that are in place to really hit it out of the park this year. Our union just really wants to also work on our negotiations this year to create benefits and salary structures that are going to attract and retain our region's most talented educators to serve the students in this community. We have an opportunity to do so, and we look forward to doing that. The fact that you were told there needed to be layoffs, and here we are with almost 100 vacancies, shows we need to do things differently, and we look forward to doing that this year with all of.
Our next public comment is Alonso Torres.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for everything you do. My name is Alonso, and I'm president of Richmond United Soccer Club. I have been president for the past 5 years. So pre-COVID, I took this role. So I've seen the transition between how much the increase in costs has affected our ability to provide our services as for youth. I ask you, when Samantha, my wife, when she presents her presentation, I ask you to have an open mind and understand that what we're doing is a part of student success. I'm a future professor and I do biomedical research. You can look us up, the Kinney Project, on social media. But I, as president of Richmond United Soccer Club, I see a reflection of myself in all of these kids. And for us to have fields taken away from us in our neighborhood, or increasing the cost to a point where we can't we can't afford it. We're an all volunteer soccer club. We are all volunteer. Nobody gets paid. Coaches, team managers, myself, nobody gets paid in our club because we are a safety net for a lot of these kids who are just looking for an outlet. So please consider opening the fields to us at an affordable rate. We're not asking that they be for free, but what you have right now is ridiculous. I'm sorry. So please listen to her presentation. Please reach out to me if you have your children that are interested in being a part of Richmond United Soccer Club. But thank you for listening to me. Really appreciate it.
Our next public comment is Ted Steen.
Board members, my name is Ted Steen. I am a San Pablo resident, and I am the Executive Director of Finance and Administration with East Shore Lions Football Club, a local nonprofit youth soccer club serving over 1,000 youth in the area, spanning from Berkeley, El Cerrito, Albany, Richmond, and San Pablo and beyond. And it was formed through the merger of Spurs FC and Mavericks SC, clubs that have been part of this community for over 50 years. Our mission is to provide the optimum environment to elevate the player experience while fostering growth, development, and positive change within our community. Positive change within our community. That's what we're here for, us and these other clubs as well, and that's what we're ready to work for. Currently, we as soccer clubs must go through the district to utilize the field space at our local schools, and often we receive different responses. A lot of this has to do with the different fees that come from restrooms being separate from the custodial fees, being separate from the field itself, and a lot of these fees have increased over the past decade. Thus, a lack of collaboration from the district, limited access to the affordability of these fields are major hurdles for nonprofits and volunteer clubs alike. Unlike Albany Middle School, for example, which is open on a regular basis for anyone to come and use the field, schools like El Cerrito High, Richmond High, and Kennedy High are frequently locked up, difficult to access, and extremely costly, depriving youth and community members access to recreational spaces. We have begun to form a coalition of like-minded individuals and clubs within the soccer space, such as Richmond United SC, to come together in unity to share our concern and work together towards a common goal of equitable access to field space in an affordable manner. In the short term, simple solution is to have a joint youth program partnership with the schools that would allow clubs like us to work directly with the schools to utilize the field space in the late evening times and the weekends as well. Let's work together to make the space.
And our last public comment is Rocco Ray.
Hello, hi everyone. I will keep this nice and short. My name is Rocca Ray. I teach chemistry and biology at Kennedy High School. And yes, I am credentialed to teach both. So I just went and spoke to a bunch of other high school teachers and, you know, I would say pretty decent start to the school year. However, at Kennedy, we do have 4 full-time vacancies. Speaking to teachers at De Anza and other secondary sites, teachers are starting out the school year period subbing quite frequently. So something to consider as the year goes on. We are headed towards massive burnout because that's unsustainable. Oh, sorry, public speaking makes me nervous. We do have a large chunk of our teachers who are set to retire in the next 5 years or so. So if we want to keep having teachers, it's important that they not burn out, and finding a solution at secondary schools for the period subbing crisis is going to be extremely important. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to appreciate everybody who spoke tonight on Zoom and in person. We're going to move to our next item. We had a request to address the board by Sam Torres. Ms. Sam Torres from the Richmond United Soccer Club will be addressing the board on sport facility use in the district. Ms. Torres will be allotted 10 minutes to address the board. And Ms. Torres, if you could give us 1 second, we want to make sure we can pull up your presentation, and then we will start the timer once you are ready, but just give us 1 second. And then, Mr. Rogers, you're not gonna be able to see the timer, so would you like me to give you a heads up when you have 5 minutes and then 2 minutes?
Yeah,
Okay,
please.
so I will go like this for 5 minutes and then I'll go like this for 2 minutes, okay?
Got it.
Thank you. You can get started whenever you like.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Board, Cabinet. My name is Samantha Torres. Firstly, I'd like to thank Trustee Gonzalez Hoy for placing this on the agenda. I also want to thank Trustee Smith Folds and Reckler, as well as Superintendent Freeze for continuing the conversation on being able to access sports facilities. So I do appreciate your contributions and your time on this. I'm the Executive Director of the Richmond Soccer Coordination Center. As a disclaimer, I have no financial interest in any of the proposals I'm suggesting. I am a volunteer. I'm not paid for any of the work that I do for soccer that I have previously done. I also want to say, second disclaimer, that most of the presentation focuses on Richmond soccer, but most of the items we're discussing today are mostly widely applicable to any sport in any city within WCC USD. So if I say specifically Richmond soccer, probably can substitute that with San Pablo baseball or Hercules pickleball. I don't know. So just keep that in mind. Next slide, please. So as part of our coordination efforts, one of our goals is to open up school-based club teams. Similar to the community schools model, we in organized youth sports acknowledge the value of having organized sports at the elementary school level for social, physical, emotional benefits. And so we're hoping to become an in-kind partner with the district to be able to provide club soccer more widely. And just briefly, I wanted to introduce the organization who's involved. These are 3 Richmond clubs that historically have not really interacted much, but in 2022, due to partially facility issues, but also just pandemic, coming back from the pandemic and reintroducing our kids in programs, we decided to collaborate so that we're able to provide higher quality, more accessible soccer programs to our youth in Richmond. Really quick shout out, Richmond Soul. They have national and NorCal State premier teams, as well as a semi-pro men's team here in Richmond. And the Club Escuela Oficial de Rayados de Richmond is an international based academy club affiliated with the Club Rayados de Monterrey de Mexico. So we have ability here to provide high quality soccer to kids in Richmond. And we've been doing this despite a lot of the barriers we've faced. Next slide, please. So the parents, yes, our players are students. Overwhelmingly with Richmond United, 97% of our students are WCC USD. But we're also school volunteers, we're teachers, we're custodians, we are part of WCC USD, not just as residents who contribute taxes, although that is an important component. We also contribute to the culture and to the resources available through WCC USD. We as youth sports organizers are part of the safety net. We help with the safety net for these youth in our communities. Next slide, please. I briefly wanted to show you an overview of what's going to be discussed. The first, I wanted to describe issues with access. Access not only means increased costs, it also means how easily available fields are. Are the policies clear? Is the communication, ongoing? We're finding a lot of issues just in the process alone to be able to get those fields. Next, I wanted to describe briefly the facility policies. I am not an education expert. My training is in genetics. I work in public health. So this is a little bit out of my wheelhouse and I needed to do some research on ed code. So I wanted to share that with those who, like me, do not familiarize yourselves with facility policies or ed code, just briefly describing it. Lastly, I wanted to propose some solutions and opportunities to continue the discussion. So I'm all about solutions. I don't just come up to people and complain. I want to be a part of how we improve things. We have some ideas here. Next slide, please.
So as recently as March 2020, Richmond United was able to readily access Richmond High School with a consistent, reliable practice schedule. Unfortunately, we all know what happened in March of 2020, which is when our permit started. So that was canceled and we have not been able to re-access the fields since then. This slide briefly describes what some of our needs are in terms of scheduling. We've been around for 30 years. Many of those decades, several of those decades have been in partnership with WCC USD for facilities. So it's not impossible for us to be able to get field space now. Something changed and we can still work together and figure this out, but it is going to require some thinking, some collaboration. Yes. Oh, 5. Okay, next slide. So a couple of the issues with facility access, Facilitron is great. That's not really the problem. The problem is that despite seeing availability in the calendar, it may or may not reflect reality. And why do I say that? One, you still require verification through the school site. You put in a request, the school district emails you, you need to confirm with principal so-and-so or so-and-so at this school, whether or not that is truly available. And then you email them and they may or may not respond. And you have to email again and ask again. And there have been instances where we have not been responded to and that field had been given to somebody else. So communication is a problem. Consistency in application of the policies is a problem. That's not Facilitron's fault. Also, there's limited availability. Like I mentioned, as recently as March 2020, we were able to access Richmond High Monday through Friday, 6 to 9, 6 to 8, something like that. So what changed between then and now? Did we increase the number of sports? I don't know. But if you look on Facilitron, it is blacked out. There is nothing available on weeknights. But the weekends are readily available, which is a problem because that means half of the actual availability comes at a premium cost due to Sunday maintenance rates. So like I said, Facilitron isn't the problem. It's really these clear, murky areas where the policies aren't really applied across the board. Next slide, please.
If you just press the button with the face on it. There you
Hello?
go.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
There we go. All right, next. So what prompted this whole process was that back in October 23rd, one of our club teams had a very important game that required a really nice facility. So out we go to Richmond High and we request this permit. My husband tells me, yeah, we just paid $453 for a soccer game. I was like, what? Like, he's my husband. I'm like, I'm sure you messed up, dude. Like, must have done something wrong, right? Well, we talked to different people. We looked at all the paperwork and it was indeed $453 for a 2-hour soccer game. You can look at a little bit more detail here when you get an opportunity. Those are the actual costs of running a 2-hour soccer game for a Sunday. Next slide, please. Now, given that we do have decades of partnership with West Contra Costa Unified School District, I was able to collect records from the past since 2009, so that's more than 12 years. In those records, I was able to compare a 10-year period between 2012 and 2022. In this, you can see how drastically the prices have changed in 10 years. 688% increase in 10 years is bananas. We would not allow that to happen with rent, with gas, with utilities. I mean, people are freaking out about the increased cost of eggs. So this is a problem. And I'm not sure that when we decided the facility policy back in 2020, that we knew that this was going to be one of the outcomes. Next slide. So I wanted to compare what a Sunday in October would look like, right? So a year apart. And although it's not quite as high as a percent increase of 688%, it still is 465% increase. The facility policies that determine the maintenance costs are part of the reason why the prices fluctuate. Next slide. So I have a whole bunch of records for you to look at. We don't have time. Let's go all the way to slide 18, please. So club soccer is subject to direct cost sharing when it comes to facility use. We get it. You have to pay for the things you take care of. It's part of value. It's part of investment. However, you can decide how much of the cost sharing it's passed off to whom. Next slide. One thing in the facility policy manual that's not either not clear to me or not existing is that, is there a facility fee schedule difference for residents and non-residents? Given that we pay additional taxes and contribute towards bonds for maintenance for these facilities. Next slide. So I know that SB 1404 changed the way that facility fee schedules in California schools are performed. One of the biggest changes that I think is probably the key factor to these changes affecting community organizations is that previously you had been charging only operational costs. And in 2020, you were now given guidance on how to start charging for maintenance costs. So that's repair, restoration, and refurbishment of the school facilities, whereas before we were not responsible as public users for those costs. This was how the costs increased by so much. Next slide.
Ms. Torres, I want to thank you. That's your time, but we will review your whole presentation and staff will follow up with you. I would be happy to make myself available to be part of those meetings as well. So we will follow up with you. You'll hear from Dr. Hurst or Mr. Freeze after this this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Okay, board, now we're gonna move to agenda review and adoption. As always, if there are no objections, trustee Reckler, yes? We're not on consent yet.
Never mind.
I know it every time. It catches me every time. So if there are no objections to the agenda, we will approve it. Wonderful. So approved. And because it's tonight's our student trustees first night, they're gonna vote last for tonight. But moving forward, trustee Caleb and trustee Cipreset, you vote first. So just letting everyone know. Okay, now we're gonna move to consent. So board, are there items you would like to pull out of consent? Trustee Reckler, we'll start with you.
Yes, thank you. Consent C10, board members, committee appointments.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, so without objection, we'll approve the consent calendar with C10 pulled. So approved, thank you. Okay, now we're gonna move to our superintendent report. Dr. Hurst, pass to you.
Thank you, sir. Can we pull up the presentation, please?
I'm gonna see this district.
Yeah, go
ahead.
And let's go to the next slide, please. So first we have a memoriam. The district would like to take the time to recognize the contributions members of the community have passed away. I regret to inform you that Gary Aldridge is passed. Gary Aldridge worked for the district as an electrician before retiring in 2018 and moving to New Mexico with his wife of 32 years, who is Jill Aldridge, also a retiree from the district. We'd like to just take a moment to pause in silence. Thank you so much. Next slide. So we're excited to share some of the work that happened during the summer, right before the school year started. We had an amazing management advance where we had more than 160 managers across the district to attend a 2-day retreat On the first day, you can see that we started off with the state of the district. And what we shared here is organizational goals. And we know that there's 6 goals that the board and the superintendent collaborated around. So we talked about that at a high level, and we shared progress from last year. And we also shared where we're headed in a draft format for this year. Then we had the opportunity for department updates. You can see we had Ed Services, IT, Special Ed, and Human Resources discuss. And then the afternoon was breakout sessions. On day 2, I have this wonderful video that I want to just share with us. It's only about 40 seconds long. We had a wonderful opening, and then we had additional updates from departments, from the remaining departments, including communications and safety and business services. And then also there was time for our EDs, executive directors, to have breakout time with our principals and our VPs. And then the afternoon were breakout sessions as well. And if you can go to the next slide. So before we play the video, just to give everyone some context, we were broken up into teams, and the teams were roughly 12 people to 15 people per team. Each team member was given a portion of like a PVC pipe that was cut in half, split down the middle, so it was more like a trough. And what we had to do is start at one point, and we had a ball, and we had to pass that ball through that PVC pipe all the way through all the team members, and it had to go all the way to the opposite end into a little cup. So you're going to see a team that was successful. So we'll share this video.
Help him out. Okay, you're going into Zach and Alicia's cup. Oh. We need one more. Wait. We need one more. Here. You got it right there. Yeah, you. Hold it. Don't move. Lower. Scoot down. Everybody squat. Come on, get low. There we go. Keep going. Lower. Yeah. Hold on. Because I'm not on it yet. No. Hold it. Yeah.
So that was a successful team. And we had one of our board trustees there. I'm not sure what team she was on and if she finished ahead of time as well. But I was on a team that was not quite successful. In fact, oh, that's right. Trustee Smith-Folds was on my team. We were the last team, and it was an epic failure. We kept dropping the ball. And once you dropped the ball, you had to go all the way back to the start. But then what was really amazing, and I wish you could see this video, how all the other teams just came to our rescue, gathered around us and supported us to make sure that we were successful as well. There were so many lessons learned from that activity. We went back inside the room, we formed a circle, and we just kind of went around and just had everyone share out their experience and what they learned. And one of the things that I certainly learned, just what I said, there are times when we're communicating and we're not communicating. There's times when we're dropping the ball. There's times when we're trying to rush, going too fast. There's times when everyone tries to be the leader and no one's really listening. Just so many learning lessons there. But again, the powerful piece was really in having all the teams come to our rescue to support us. And we really talked about that and going into this school year and really wanting to collaborate with one another and really wanting to get rid of silos across our district. And how do we really have and create and develop an environment where we are working together and supporting one another. So a really great activity to bring it all together. Next slide. And you probably can't see this, but this was not the management advance. So on the 8th and the 9th, we had an Ed Services a leadership retreat or a leadership institute, so to speak. And the same conversations happened. It was really not just Ed Services, but a lot of our leaders and some of our head counselor and counselors as well. And we really looked at things like, what are our values? Again, this whole concept of how do we collaborate together? How do we work with one another? How do we have a shared purpose? So we talked about values, we talked about purpose. We talked also about our meetings, how we're going to make decisions, our priorities. So those were 2 powerful days as well. Next slide. And then on the 10th, we had the executive team meet, and we had one of our board trustees to come, and this is a powerful day as well. And we had some outcomes around clarity around roles and responsibilities. So as Kim and others have mentioned, and Mr. Mitchell, Mark Mitchell has mentioned, we have some new team members here on our executive team. We really wanted to be very clear on our roles, but really this is about our CAO and our executive directors and the superintendent and how we collaborate with one another and how we work together. So you can see some of our desired outcomes for that meeting. You can see our priorities as well. And we also made some next steps. It was a real powerful conversation around accountability and what does accountability look like this year from all of us and across the organization. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? Next slide. And I think one of the powerful conversations as well that came out of this 10th meeting is having sort of like this everything calendar, and we're calling it our WCC USD Integrated Leadership Calendar. And it was a collaborative effort and really covers everything from all departments and also the events and spaces where we're having professional learning. You can see the tabs at the very bottom. So you have the calendar that gives you the big view, then you have the smaller tabs where you can go into those tabs and you can see precisely what's happening every single month as well. And this is much needed in our organization. Next slide. And then we want to just highlight some visits to schools. And I just wanted to just share and commend those who are on public comment, and also Ms. Chamberlain, who already shared what I was going to share. Very successful opening. I wanted to sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, thank every single employee that's listening, those who are here as well, all the executive cabinet, directors, everyone played a role to the tremendous start. I've been here for 3 years, and this is certainly a much better year. And I, like what Zalan said, we had a great year. We still have a lot of work to do, but it was a really great, amazing opening. So thank you, all of you. Next slide. We had the opportunity to visit myself and some other board members joined in some of these as well, 23 schools. And you can see the schools that's before us here. And I will just say that every principal shared a very similar message. They were very passionate, very excited, very energized about the start of the school year, but they were very honest as well, as we've heard that some people share. Mr. Mitchell talked about our issues around staffing. That is something that we're going to have to address, and we are doing that right now. Principals talked to me about facility issues. They talked to me about safety issues. They were very transparent. They talked to me about environmental issues, and of course, our certificated and classified staffing issues. They're all very transparent. Again, I want to thank the team here that's before me. They executive directors and also all of our executive team because they've been extremely responsive to the needs of the school sites. So I just wanted to lift them up as well. Next slide. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Hurst. Board, now we're gonna move to questions. Trustee Cypriser and Caleb, when it comes to questions, you just have to raise your hand. I don't go in any specific order, so just raise your hand and I'll call the hands that I see first. We'll go in that order, and then when it comes to voting, I usually just go from left to right. Okay, it's just FYI. So anyone have any questions from the superintendent's report? Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Hurst. Now we're gonna move to our action items. The first E1 is the consideration of approval for the second amendment to the superintendent's employee agreement. The superintendent employment agreement between the OACC-USD and Dr. Hurst, as previously amended in 2022, includes a salary schedule that consists of 4 steps, with each step providing for a 2% annual increase in salary. At this time, the board wishes to confirm the 2% increases for the salary schedule for the 2022-23 and 23-24 fiscal years. Additionally, the board wishes to enter into a further amendment, to provide for an additional 3% increase for the 22-23 fiscal year retroactive to July 1st, 2022, and an additional 30% increase for the 23-24 fiscal year retroactive to July 1st, 2023. Additionally, the amendment would change the deadline for the superintendent evaluation conference from June 30th to July 30th of each year, and would revise the terminology of the rating system set forth in the agreement. One last change that we are also proposing will read as follows. If an exemplary criteria in the superintendent's evaluation is achieved, the superintendent will get an automatic 1-year extension to his contract. So those 4 things are the changes that we are bringing forward for the board to approve tonight. And since this is really a closed session item, I'm not going to take questions, and we'll go straight to a motion. Trustee Reckler?
I'll go ahead and move all of the amendments as well as the increase in contract with of 1 year with an exemplary evaluation.
Thank you, Trustee Reckler. I'll second. Okay, board, now we're gonna move straight to our vote. Trustee Christian, we'll start with you since Clerk Smith-Folds went to the restroom.
Yes.
Thank you. Trustee Reckler?
Reckler, yes.
Trustee Caleb?
Caleb, yes.
Trustee Cypriset?
Cypriser, yes.
And I'm a yes as well. It passes with, sorry, I'm not used to student trustees already. 2, 3, 4, 5 yes, 1 and 2 two absent. Thank you so much. I apologize. Thank you, Dr. Hurst, for your service. Okay, now we're gonna move to action item E2, our single plans for student achievement, which will be presented by Ms. Neely Johnson, I believe. Hi, good evening.
Yes, good evening. Board President Gonzalez Hoy, Board Trustees, Dr. Hurst, Cabinet, and WCC USD community. We are pleased to bring forth the single plan for student achievement, which is known as SIPSAs. They serve as a vehicle for communicating information about schools' visions and initiatives to improve academic achievement for students at our individual schools. The SPSA also includes alignment of the initiatives to the sites of the state local control funding, which is known as the LCFF, and supplemental concentration funds such as federal Title I funds. And we are pleased this evening that we are bringing 43 of those plans to you for approval. We do have a presentation here that I will just say will be referenced, but basically the highlights are making sure that in the plan that we're aligning our local control accountability plan, which are the goals for achieving students, thriving schools, and caring schools. We added 3 additional sections for achieving students' goals, and those plans support specifically African-American students, English learners, and special education students. And we also have each year, we go through our AMOs, which are our annual measurable outcomes. And one thing that we're going to be looking at this past year, we did do monitoring, but we're going to continue to do monitoring at least twice this year. And we'll be looking at our local measures to provide us guidance. When you have a SPSA, many times strategies are chosen by those staff based on data. And we will take that information when we get back our data from our local assessments. And sometimes we tweak our assessments. So the SPSA is a living document. I want to also highlight that our goal is to always have the monitoring happen during the school year, and then these plans be complete by June, so that we can bring them to you in the summer so that they can be approved and schools can start spending funds to provide services to students. So at this time, I will just list the schools that are the first 43. And we have elementary, Bayview, Chavez, Collins, Downer, Elahurst, Fairmont, Ford, Grant, Hannah Ranch, Harding, Kensington, King, Lake, Lincoln, Lupine Hills, Michelle Obama, Murphy, Neestrom, Ohlone, Olinda, Riverside, Shannon, Sheldon, Steege, Terra Hills, Valley View, Washington, and West County Mandarin. For our K-8 schools, we have Mira Vista, Mount Talvin, Perry's, and Verde. And for our middle schools, Dejan, Helms, Hercules Middle School, Korematsu Middle School, Pinole Middle School, and Soskins. And for our high schools, De Anza, Greenwood, Hercules High School, Middle College, and Richmond. In the presentation, there is a notation. If there's a plus sign, that means that that is a Title I school. We will bring the remaining 9 SPSAs, and they will come to you at the next board meeting, which will be September 6th. The financial impact for the plans are 4.5 million and Title I funds of 4.7 million. And at this time, I ask for approval.
Thank you so much, Ms. Neely Johnson. Do we have any public comment? And I apologize, I actually didn't ask for this at the last item. So if there are any public comments on the last item as well, we can take it on now.
There's no public comment.
Okay, thank you so much. Board, does anyone have any questions? Trustee Reckler, we'll start with you. And sorry, I forgot to mention, tonight we are doing 3 questions per item. If you have more than 3, we can do another round. And then we'll be doing 3 minutes on comments. Thank you. Go ahead, Trustee Reckler.
Great, thank you. How do you in central office use these documents?
So
or since we have a new team, how will you use these documents?
So part of what we plan to do is make the SPSA a living document. And so we'll be doing walkthroughs. We're going to be looking at data, like I said, from our local assessments. Just recently, we received our SBAC data. So that's what schools are looking at now. And they may be already making some tweaks to the SPSAs based on the data that they receive, because sometimes a strategy may change or a focus may change. So the goal is to make this a living document with at least 2 monitoring cycles.
And then as you read them either together or by area or by feeder school or by like however you decide to divide these up, what do you pull from them now?
So I can tell you, because I am new coming into this role, but the educational services team did review all of the plans. And so if it was the literacy department, that department would review the literacy portion or the literacy strategy in the plans and would give feedback. And so the goal is to continue to support the schools in meeting their goals. And our goal is also to utilize our PPL, which is our principals meetings, to really dive a little deeper into the plans.
And then when you see resource inequities, when you see resource inequities in general, but when you see resource inequities being repeated 2 or 3 years in a row, what do you do with that information, or how do you react to it? And I'm especially thinking of things that are out of the school's control, such as the need for safety officers.
So I would say that one of the things that we want to do is make the plan, like I said, a living document, but also authentic. And so this year, really looking at those plans, what, basically our schools have received funds, right? And looking at how those funds are allocated to support the strategies that are in the plans. And like I said, sometimes getting new data, you may decide to change a strategy. But I would say that my plan is to really look closely at what are in plans and making sure that our strategies align to the district initiatives, and also having that kind of feedback and providing extra support. Because sometimes a plan, if strategies haven't changed or it's stagnant, then that is an indication to our department that maybe we should be providing some additional support to that site.
Okay, if you would want to expand this discussion, I'd have more to ask. Otherwise, I could just make some comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Reckler. Clerk Smith Foltz, go ahead.
Thank you so much, CAO Johnson. My question is, when you present these SPSAs to the board, what is your expectation that we do? Do you expect us to read them? Do you expect us to make comments on them? What is your expectation that you would want from the board?
So all of you on the board represent different areas. And so I would hope that you would review the schools in your area, look at the strategies. I know many of you visit the schools. And so looking at some of the things that are being said in those plans, do you see evidence when you're doing your visits? But also I would also say to give us feedback and to inform us on how we better can support, because that's our role.
Thank you so much. I just have comments. I'm complete.
Thank you, Clerk Smith Foltz. Well, Trustee Reckler, I don't have any questions, so would you like to ask a couple more questions?
Sure.
Go ahead.
So when sites underspend their funds, what do you do, or what do you think, or like?
So I would say that one of the things that we want to beef up this year is having those conversations. And I'm going to defer to my colleague over here, because we are going to be really collaborating on this, because business services actually helps us monitor the spending of those funds. And so collaborating on some different strategies that we can do to support schools in spending those funds to meet the needs of students within this school year. So I'm going to defer to Ms. Moses to elaborate a little bit more.
Ms. Moses, mic doesn't work.
There we
Oh,
go.
there you go. We figured it out. Never
We
mind.
were trying to figure out how to get me turned on. Good evening, Board President and trustees. As a part of the work we're doing this year in business services, we're trying to support sites to regularly, quarterly is our goal, to look at their budgets and how the budgets align to the SPSA, to ensure that we're supporting them to spend down on their planned activities in the appropriate moment, so that funds are being spent down across the year, and that we're providing support to sites to ensure that they're using the money as intended, as written in their plan for activities and actions. So that is our plan moving forward. Previously, when funds were underspent, we really really put the responsibility on the principal to spend down their funds without really helping them to monitor the timing of that. And we want to do better with that this year.
Okay, thank you. And then if these get approved, how fast can these contracts get into place? What's the turnaround between approval and delivering the service?
So the process generally happens over the summer as we close our books for the fiscal year, which happens on June 30th. We're closing out the funds that expired June 30th and beginning to load the budgets for sites to use beginning July 1st. The timing of that really depends upon how quickly sites can develop budgets, and budgets can be submitted to our account techs in order to load them up. So I would say that the timeline for that differs based upon when the SPSA is approved, when the principal meets with state and federal director and her staff in order to develop a budget. Those things have to be in place before we can load a budget. And finally, before monies are allowed to be allocated to expenses, you have to approve those plans for the sites. So it's a process that is iterative and ongoing, and it requires the support of many to get things loaded up. I do believe that by the time, I would say August 1st, we are ready to load those budgets, but spending can't happen until after you approve.
So for these specifically, when do you think services will be rolling on these plans?
Budgets have already been placed. We're just waiting for approval. So the money is ready to be spent as soon as approval is given.
Okay. And then, so it is a living document because I note metrics in here that are likely to change from the board's point of view. So let's just take literacy, for example. I see a flat out 5% across the board, every document that I've touched. That's probably not going to materialize. Will that be changed in these SPSAs?
So I just wanted to clarify the last part. Once the plans are approved, because right now we are still kind of we'll be diving into our SBAC data within the next couple of weeks. So once the plans are approved, like I said, it is a living document. And so there may be some things that are changed. I would say for the most part, though, schools do a really good job of figuring out what strategies they want to utilize and where those expenditures are. So many times expenditures aren't really changed, but more so the strategies. But I would also say too, sometimes you may have a person in the plan and say, like Ms. Moses talked about, if funds are not spent by a certain time because we haven't been able to find that person, then maybe we would reallocate that those funds to something else and maybe to a different strategy.
Okay, we're gonna move to motion and comments, if it's okay. So does anyone have a motion? Trustee Reckler? Clerk Smith-Folds? Sorry about that.
I have a motion, and then President Gonzalez-Hoy, am I too late to ask a question?
Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry, I missed your hand.
I do have just 2 additional questions. So the SPSAs are written in the spring and they're supposed to be implemented in the fall. What is the impact of not having the same staff when you write it to when you're implementing it? And how do we as a district help with that gap that ultimately will happen?
So the SPSA, when it sits written, I would say, for example, when I became a principal at Wilson many years ago, actually 20 years ago, I actually did walk into a school that already had a plan. So the first thing that I did as the principal was to review the plan, and I also reviewed it with my staff. And I talked about the strategies, got to understand, why they chose different strategies. We also reviewed data. And so that's what we would expect of any leader that is coming in new. But also, as a staff, we can also continue to support in terms of all of our new leaders coming in. That's one of the things that we'll be doing a lot of with our we'll be having new principals training, but also to some of our seasoned principals, being mentors and support of new principals coming in and just sharing some of their best practices.
Thank you very much. My last question is, and I think CAO Johnson, you said this, but I think that I might have missed it. How many hands do the SPSAs pass before they come to us? So the SSC writes it.
Yeah, so our two mandated approvals, and when I say approvals, the SSCs and the ELACs, they have to be legal. And when I say legal in terms of parity and who's made up of those bodies, then they would have the plans presented to them. And then once those plans are presented to them, then there's a vote. And so we require to make sure that all of those things are in place. Our goal this past year was to also involve our APACs. And as you heard, we're building those APACs across our district and our sites. And so the goal for next year is to really have all of our schools have APACs be very involved in this process as well.
Thank you very much. President Gonzalez-Hoy, I'm complete.
Thank you, Clerk Smith-Folds. Okay, board, we have a full board tonight. So we're gonna continue the rest of the items with 3 questions, 2-minute comments, okay? Hi, Trustee Phillips, welcome. Now let's move to a motion. Anyone have a motion? And then we'll do comments.
I'll move that the SPSAs presented tonight are approved.
Smith-Folds seconds.
Thank you. Who would like to get started with comments? Trustee Reckler? If we could
So
put up
I
our
don't
timer
need to
start.
start.
Oh, you need to start. Okay. Does anyone like to start? Clerk Smith-Folds, go ahead.
I want to thank staff for really being on top of bringing them forward this year. This is, I think, the first time since I've been on the board that they've come in a timely manner to where implementation can happen at the beginning of the year. And whatever the SPSA says, it can then turn around and be implemented at the site level, and we can see it in motion and how it touches the children's lives. Also want to thank CAO Johnson for giving us a lesson as a board of what we are supposed to do when the SPSAs come and how we are supposed to ensure that what is written is what we see when we go on site visits. So thank you for that. CBO Moses, also thank you for your lesson on letting us know how it's allocated, the money and the timeline with that. I think this is a wonderful education in SPSAs. I would like us to continue it, especially for our new board members and trustees, because the acronyms, we have to remember the acronyms are an alphabet soup. So we need to make sure that we are slowing down to go fast. I am complete. Thank you again, staff.
Thank you, Clerk Smith-Folds. We'll move to Trustee Reckler.
Thank you. So I want to thank the person who put together the allocations, because the arts grant funding is now on those allocation sheets, and I asked for that and it got done. So I really thank you. So I also asked if the community schools grant money could get put on them. So maybe do that too. So thank you. I also appreciate having them all come at the same time, or most of them come at the same time, because it gave me a different look, and I wasn't looking at them piecemeal. I was able to look at them together as a collection. And I want to thank the sites for their brutal honesty, because there were some really honest things in here that I may not have seen before, because I'm seeing them now together as a like a lot of them together. So the first thing as I do is I go straight to the resource inequities. That is the first thing I do, and I figure out if it's site level or whether it's a central office issue. So a lot of the things that I'm seeing, the ones that call out to me, are the need for campus safety and bilingual aids. They can't do anything about that. You guys can do something about that. So that's very much in my thinking. I also look at where sites are underspent, because there could be a lot of reasons, but I pay a lot of attention to that. And I'm looking for general themes, and I'm hoping that you are too, which is why I said that. It's like, what do you pull back from these and think about what you can do in effect? Because there are some really big things in here that sites are really struggling with. And so I'm hoping that you'll help them. And the other thing I was thinking about is if we could have a heavy version and a light version. So if you're getting 40 grand and you're filling out 80 pages, as a principal, I might be a little disincentivized. So think about that. And with that, I'm complete. Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Smith Folds. I'm sorry. Tonight, I'm switching you both. I don't know what's going on with my brain. Sorry, Trustee Reckler and Clerk Smith Folds. For my comments, sorry, that threw me off. My childcare today canceled, so I was dad duty all day, and that's pretty tiring. Okay, for my comments, I want to thank staff, CAO Johnson and Ms. Moses. Thank you so much for the work, for the sites. I do have this wonder of we create the goals and priorities for Dr. Hurst and the district at the beginning of the year. So how do we align them to what the sites are doing? I wonder that, and I would love to hear more thoughts about that in the future. Although I think the SPSA should be approved now, right? Because obviously that's the priorities and the work that sites want to do throughout the year. But I wonder how we align that. And maybe we can brainstorm about how to do that. But I did want to thank the sites, and I want to thank you all for bringing so many at once, which is very different than what we've experienced the last few years. So thank you. Okay, board, let's move forward to our vote. Again, the motions to approve the 43 SPSAs that came forward tonight. Clerk Smith Folds, we'll start with you.
Smith Folds, yes.
Trustee Christian,
Yes.
Trustee Reckler,
Reckler, yes.
Trustee Phillips,
Yes.
Trustee Seprasert,
Yes.
Trustee Calip,
Caleb, yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Passed unanimously. Thank you so much. Okay, now we're gonna move to action item E3, which I believe is Dr. Johnson's.
Yes. Thank you. Good evening, President Gonzalez Hoy and Board Trustees. Thank you for the opportunity to speak again this evening. The first item up is having to do with our PIP, which, if we want to talk about acronyms, is Provisional Internship Permit. And this is a permit given to teachers who have not yet met their subject matter competency. It is allowed for 1 calendar year, and within that year, they are able to enter an internship program to become fully credentialed. Are there any questions?
Thank you so much, Dr. Johnson. Do we have any public comment for this item?
There's no public comment.
Thank you, board. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, does anyone have a motion for this item?
I'll move the provisional internship permit or PIP.
Second.
Thank you. Is there anyone have any comments? Okay, let's move to a vote. Clerk Smith Folds, start with you.
Smith Folds, yes.
Trustee Christian,
Christian, yes.
Trustee Reckler,
Reckler, yes.
Trustee Phillips,
Yes.
Trustee Seprasert,
Yes.
Trustee Calip,
Caleb, yes.
and I'm a yes. Passed unanimously. Thank you. Now we're gonna move to E4. Dr. Johnson, I believe is your item as well.
Yes, thank you. This is another opportunity for teachers to begin teaching with us. This provides additional time to complete credential requirements. You are given 1 school year for this particular waiver.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment for this item?
There's no public comment.
Thank you. Board, is there any questions? Okay, can I have a motion, please?
I'll move education code 44258 .3 variable term waivers.
Thank you. I'll second. Let's move to our vote. Clerk Smith Folds, we'll start with you.
Smith Folds, yes.
Trustee Christian,
Christian, yes.
Trustee Reckler,
Reckler, yes.
Trustee Phillips,
Yes.
Trustee Seprasert,
Yes.
Trustee Calip,
Caleb, yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Passed unanimously. Thank you, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're gonna move to our first discussion item. And we have 3 tonight. All might be a little lengthy, so just a heads up to everyone. The first one is the 2023 general obligation refund bonds post issuance presentation of taxpayer savings. Welcome. Mr. Freeze, so I pass it to you.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. Good evening. Tonight we have Mr. Blake Beam with Canaan Public Finance here with us. He's going to give us an update on the refinancing pursuant to the district's refunding and restructuring policy. And I'll let Mr. Beam give the good news from the recent restructuring.
Thanks, Mr. Freeze. Good evening, board. It's a pleasure to be back here. I'm also joined by Connor Norton from JP Morgan, who served as the bond underwriting firm that worked on this refinancing effort. It's our pleasure to be able to come back to the board following the June 14th approval to move forward with some really positive results. Through the 2023 refinancing effort, the district was able to save taxpayers over $14 million of general obligation bond outstanding debt by lowering the outstanding cost of borrowing. This effort was done through a tender offer, so a little bit of a different format than what the district has done in the past through its refinancing efforts. Through a tender offer, existing investors of bonds that had purchased these bonds over prior years were invited to sell those bonds back at a discount. With the current interest rate environment, there's interest that some investors would have to liquidate or get out of their existing investment and be able to repurpose their monies in a higher returning bond environment. And as such, the district was able to proceed with a tender offer to buy those bonds back at a discount and lock in savings. On the first slide, I don't know if is the presentation up? Oh, it is. Okay, perfect. On the first slide, the bottom left, we highlight some of the financial statistics associated with the 2023 refinancing effort, which successfully closed just a few weeks ago on August 1st. The total par amount of the refinancing was just over 82 million and had an all-in true interest cost, which represents the aggregate borrowing cost for the refinancing bonds of 3.273%. The final maturity date of August 1st, 2045 is consistent and aligns with the maturity date of the bonds that were refinanced. So there was no extension of the repayment term associated through this effort. We'll talk a little bit more about the tender offer process, but there was a very strong result and reception from the investors of the potential refinancing candidates. There was nearly $100 million of bonds tendered, or about 22.1%, that helped to bolster the amount of savings well beyond what was previously shared with the board back in June. On the next slide, I just wanted to touch on the district's refunding and restructuring board policy, which was approved back in April of 2013, is really our guiding light in terms of these refinancing efforts. It establishes clear benchmarks for which the board and district staff and bond financing team will evaluate potential refunding candidates and proceed accordingly. Just to name some of the key guidelines that are within this policy, one of which is a minimum of present value savings at 4% relative to the par amount of bonds refunded. So 4% being the baseline. Through this refinancing effort, the net present value savings was 10.3%, so well beyond, more than double that benchmark. Additionally, the policy highlights that a refunding effort will save a minimum of $1 million present value in savings overall. This refinancing effort generated $10.8 million of present value savings. Again, well beyond the policy guideline. And we also cleared the $100,000 per year savings through the remaining life of these bonds. So this refinancing effort certainly not only met, but far surpassed the policy guidelines that the district has in place. On the next slide, This the 2023 refinancing adds to a long list of prior refinancing efforts that have been approved by the district's board, which have resulted in taxpayer savings of nearly $136 million. Now, again, this refinancing effort, it's not a mandate, it's not a requirement of the board to approve these. There's a policy in place. There's a team that works closely with district staff to closely monitor these efforts each and every year. And through these efforts, the idea is to minimize the borrowing costs for district taxpayers that have been so generous in approving a number of past general obligation bond authorizations. And again, through these efforts going back to 2009, saving almost $136 million is quite a significant feat. I will say that the 2023 metrics, when compared to a number of the other prior refunding efforts, are right there near kind of the top of the heap, if you will, in terms of present value savings as a percentage of bonds refunded. Some refundings have been larger, some smaller, but that percentage is the apples to apples comparison there. And that's kind of what I'm looking at when I make that statement. For the next couple slides, I'm going to turn it over to Connor so he can discuss a little bit more about the tender offer and participation.
Thanks, Blake. Excuse me. So on page 4, this is an overview of the tender process and what the steps we actually took to effectuate the tender and then fund the tender. So as you can see, on June 30th, we posted an invitation to tender, and that let investors know that the district was looking to buy back a schedule of the bonds that we'd included in the invitation. Typically, you don't post the prices immediately. You wait until closer to the end of the period. And so on July 13th, we posted a schedule that had all of the prices at which the district would repurchase their bonds or tender their bonds back from investors. Between July 13th and the 19th, that's when we received tenders. So that's when investors, through brokers and through their trustees, they submitted their bonds back to the district to be tendered, but the district hadn't accepted the bonds yet. At that point, we were working closely with K&N and district staff to determine, which bonds made sense to accept. Ultimately, all of the bonds were economic to refinance, so we ended up accepting all of them. The way to think about this is they're two mirror image transactions. So the first transaction is we're soliciting investors to sell their bonds back, and then we're going to somewhat of a different investor base, but also some of the same investors, and then we're offering new bonds with a longer call date to buy back to buy new bonds. So there are these two mirror transactions. And so after the tender period ends, we know how many bonds we would need to buy back. We then do a bond sale to sell new bonds to fund the tender. And so on July 20th, understanding the cost that we would have to refinance, we sold bonds at the interest rate that Blake mentioned earlier, about 3.5% blended cost. We accepted the tenders on the 21st once we knew how the cost of tendering the bonds compared to the refinancing cost, and we closed the transaction on August 1st. The one thing that I'll say if we look at the next slide, is that the results were significantly better than what we had shown the board in June. We had most of the estimates assumed 15% participation from the total universe of investors that we looked at. We included $447 million of bonds as potential targets. Ultimately, 99 million ended up participating. They were all accepted. That gets us to about a 22% participation rate. This is, I would say that the estimate that was used for the board presentation back in June, that was informed by, similar tender transactions that we had executed for other issuers. And so the fact that we got as many as we did was great. The one other thing I just point out is, if you look at this table on the screen, we have the taxable total at the second the second half of that table, those are recent refinancings. And so we were able to extract additional savings by refinancing them again. And ultimately, there's some bond math that's probably not worth getting into, but hopefully there will be an opportunity to ultimately extract another round of savings from them in the future so that through the total program, the savings will be, or the total cost of capital will be blended down and much lower than what it would have been initially when they were initially sold. Thank you.
Thanks, Connor. So through the strong reception of the tender offer and the ability to buy back the bonds at roughly 77 cents on the dollar, that was able to generate the savings that I had mentioned previously of about 14.13 million over the remaining life of these bonds. On this slide, it shows how those savings are allocated to each of the district's respective bond authorizations, recognizing that there's 5 of 7 existing authorizations that reaped a benefit from this refinancing effort and will be seen by taxpayers through a reduction in their respective property tax bills. And on the final slide, per education code, and making note that all of the savings that have been mentioned through the course of this presentation are net of all transactional costs associated. On this page, it reflects all of the final costs associated with the refinancing effort in 2023. Up at the top, listing the bond underwriter and then bond insurance. And just to clarify what bond insurance means, there's an economic analysis that's done when you secure a bond insurer, and it provides investors with additional risk relief. And so they're willing to purchase the new bonds at a lower borrowing cost. And so we evaluate that savings through the lower borrowing cost that investors would provide with insurance against that of the cost of the insurance. And if there is an economic benefit of having the insurance, then we will assign bond insurance to the transaction. So through the course of that assessment and analysis, we assigned a bond insurer with Build America Mutual, or BAM, which you can see their cost associated, and then all of the other costs below associated with legal, advisory, banking, and so on and so forth. And so with that, that wraps up the highlights of the 2023 refinancing transaction. I welcome any questions that the board may have.
Thank you so much. Do we have any public comment on this item?
There's no public comment.
Okay. Board, do we have any questions? We'll start Clerk Smith Folds.
Thank you so much for the presentation. So I have 2 questions, maybe 3, but definitely 2. I need to figure out how to say what you just said to my community, and what you said sounded like gobbledygook to me. But let me just see if I understood it. At the end of all of this, you save taxpayers money. So when they look on the back of their bills that they get at the end of the year, middle year, whatever, and it says WCC USD property tax is going to be lower because of what you did. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Great. And then the other thing is on this little slide, or this little slide right here, slide number 7, are we paying you $1 million? It's $935,861.25. Do you get that?
I do not.
I mean, not you specifically, but like, but you know what? Scratch that. I don't care. I have another question. Principal or CBO Moses, how do we pay that?
I'm gonna ask Lois to help me with this, but my understanding is that they take their proceeds from the sale of the bonds so that there isn't an impact to our funding, but it's, I guess it could be equated to a commission.
Great.
Yes.
Okay, so Mr. Freeze, that $935,861,025, that comes out of what we sold, right?
That comes right off the top of the sale of the bonds.
Great. Okay, I'm complete. Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Smith Folds. Trustee Reckler?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. So how does the criteria in our policy compare to other districts or jurisdictions that do refunding? And are there people out there that are more successful based upon their criteria?
Just to clarify, that was regarding the existing policy guidelines.
Correct, what we have.
I would say that the district's existing policy guidelines are representative of the baseline industry benchmarks. So that 4% net present value savings is a number that is broadly used by those in the finance markets to assess whether or not a refinancing is considered economically viable. There are other agencies that set a bar that's higher than 4% for their own reasons. And there's even in some cases, some agencies that will consider refinancing below 4%, but I do believe that 4% is a widely used within the industry.
Okay.
The $1 million of net present value savings, which is also part of the guidelines, is not necessarily an industry benchmark. I think that that was established by the district back in 2013 as a means to ensure that every small little refinancing effort isn't presented to the board year after year. It has to have a critical mass in order to make its way to being presented to the board as a whole. And so I think that that's where those numbers come in, both the $1 million of net present value savings and the $100,000 of annual savings.
Okay, thank you. And then why do you think that the result came in so much stronger than what you initially suggested would be the number, which I believe, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it was between 3 and 5. And of course, I want to say, were you sandbagging?
You know, as the conversation started, the goal was to minimize the upfront cost to the district, not knowing how a tender offer would actually play out. And so our numbers and our presentation materials at that time assumed a very core piece of information that we felt comfortable enough presenting to the board, which was 2 existing bondholders that had both respectively a reasonable amount of bonds outstanding that had expressed interest in the tender. And between those 2, it only equated to approximately 15 million, if I'm not mistaken. And so all of our numbers, the corresponding savings, were based on just those 2 participants. Now, as the process unfolded, once we had formal direction from the board and the tender invite went out to all of the bondholders, nearly $500 million worth of bondholders, we saw a much greater reception. I think part of that is the changing dynamic within the market and the expectation of continued rising interest rates or yields. And so as existing bondholders are holding on to that investment and yields are rising, the value of their investment is dropping. The price of those investments are dropping. And so I think the tender offer was an opportunity for an audience of existing bondholders to make a decision to, even though they were getting a discount price on their investment, they were able to pull their cash out and reinvest it in a higher yielding security. And I think that that's why we saw such a great reception through the course of the tender offer process.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, there's no motion, so we're gonna move to comments. Board, does anyone have any comments on this item? Trustee Reckler?
I do. So I want to thank the board, especially Trustee Smith Folds, who was, had to be really convinced, a little bit to take a chance on this. And I'm really very appreciative that you did. because the savings were big and, you know, it had everything in it. It had intrigue, it had a secret warehouse with bondholder names. It wasn't a typical refinancing opportunity, so I'm glad that we did it and, you know, I'll take 14 million, thank you.
Clerk Smith Folds.
Thank you for that. Y'all did convince me because I did not really know what you were talking about. I didn't really, you got nice suits on. I appreciate it, but I didn't believe what you were talking about. I didn't understand it, but I'm glad that it worked out. Now I have a little bit more knowledge about it. So I'm looking forward to, you know, if it comes again and we can save taxpayers more money, that's great. Board, thank you for allowing me that space to ask the questions and try to get a little bit more knowledge around this topic. I appreciate it. I do have to apologize. I told you I didn't care what you said. I really do kind of care, but I'm just kind of moving along a little bit, but I appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming and thank you for answering our questions. Thank you, Mr. Freeze. Thank you, CBO Moses. I'm complete.
For my comments very quickly, I just want to thank you both and your teams for getting us this, Mr. Freeze and Dr. Hurst for bringing this idea forward, board for, we took a gamble of, you know, $30,000-$40,000 that we spent forward and it paid off. I'm really glad that it did. Ms. Sanders, I would love to see it out to our community that tonight we saved them $14 million in their bonds. I know that maybe not be as much as we wish, but anything helps, especially in today's economy. So any good news, I think is great. So maybe our comms team can help us put something on. But thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay, team, now we're gonna move to F2, which is the summer learning update. CAO Neely Johnson, I think it's your item.
Yes, we have 3 of our educational services staff here to provide an update on summer learning. We have Dr. Gabe Chilcott, raise your hand. Our SELPA director, Guthrie Fleischman, and our coordinator, Sanji Bell.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Neely Johnson. Thank you, President Gonzalez Hoy, board trustees, Superintendent Hurst. We appreciate being able to be up here to share our summer programs and all the great things that happened this past summer. So this is going to include extended school year, summer school, and expanded learning. And I apologize, but CSACE didn't make it on this cover slide, but that'll be the 4th program that we'll be talking about. This summer, we served a large number of students, certainly a larger number of students than we've served in the last few years. We had 4 co-located special education and general education sites. We had 1 special education only high school site and 1 co-located. 2 special education only middle schools. And then we had 4 elementary sites, 2 middle school sites, 2 in-person high school sites. All high schools are running Edgenuity programs, and then expanded learning was at 21 sites. I'll pass it now to Guthrie Fleischman, who's going to talk about extended school year programs.
Thank you, Dr. Chilcott. Superintendent, board president, board trustees, thank you for having us here tonight. Extended school year is for students at risk of significant regression as a result of their disabilities. It is a part of the services that are written into some students' IEPs. And it is it's offered to students. It is voluntary. Parents are not compelled to send their students to ESY. Just because it's in their IEP. However, many do take advantage of that opportunity. It is an in-person program, and all of the designated services are delivered in person. This includes speech services, occupational therapy, adaptive PE, physical impairment, deaf and hard of hearing services, and others that are all the services that are provided within a student's IEP are also presented to them during ESY. And the way that we communicate to parents is it goes through their case managers. Case managers reach out individually to every parent on their caseload for those students who have ESY in their IEPs. Then parents confirm their desire to attend. Next slide. So we actually were able to serve in pre-K through elementary, 483 students overall. You'll see Terra Hills and King had much larger numbers than the other schools. That's because they had both K-6 students as well as preschool. So there were 153 and 135 in those two sites respectively. And then Lincoln, Bayview, Dover, and Obama, ranging from 28 to 76 students attending at each of those four school sites. In our elementary programs. Then in our secondary programs, we served 201 students overall. You can see El Cerrito High School and De Anza had 28 and 35 respectively at our high school sites. Again, De Anza was co-located with our Gen Ed summer school as well. El Cerrito was exclusively ESY. Betty Reed Soskin had 29 and Dejan Middle School had 31 students, and our transition program for 18 students 18 to 22 years old served 78 students. You do see a couple of photos there. There was a lot of food and a lot of fun events. There's a cooking program that's embedded in the ESN, that's the extensive sport needs classes. So the summer school program has that cooking program embedded, and they make a lot of food and have a lot of fun. But it's also a good time for continuing socialization for students over the course of the summer to maintain the continuity of what they've done throughout the school year. Next slide. And I'll pass it to Ms. Bell.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Good evening, Superintendent and board members. My name is Sanji Bell, and I'm here to talk to you about our elementary offering for summer school. This past summer, we hosted and invited over 700 students to participate in our summer offerings for students to advance during a very thorough but short program. There were certain priorities that were given to students that were part of our foster youth, our EL students. We also took into consideration students' attendance, also our social emotional prioritization, as well as grades, as always, and those who've been historically underserved. Next slide. Our offerings were at Obama, Dover, Lincoln, and Bayview, with our highest concentration of students being in second grade. Next slide. And we hosted professional development for teachers. I would say approximately 45 teachers were trained in Springboard to provide high stakes instructional materials and strategies for these students. And we're currently working with our data source EduClimber to upload and provide the results of our summer school and track those students in terms of their summer learning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we're really excited about the new program EduClimber and our ability to be able to track students and compare different groups across. So I just really want to highlight that work. We're not there yet in terms of like building out those comparisons, but that will be happening shortly, and we're looking forward to sharing those out. For the high school in-person hubs, we had 418 original invitees to Kennedy and 446 at De Anza. Attending week 2, we had 193 students at Kennedy and 276 at De Anza. Overall, when I calculated at the end, we had 454 passing grades for the in-person coursework, which accounted for 2,270 credits earned or recovered during our in-person summer program. We also this year, for the first time, had a high school Edgenuity hybrid. And this was our online Edgenuity credit recovery program that we've had for a number of years, but we call it a hybrid because we did have an expectation of students coming to school a couple of days a week, but we offered the flexibility of it didn't have to be every day because that is an online platform. It was flexible in that if a student would be more successful by being there every day, we certainly offered that and counseled that, but it allowed us to bring in larger numbers because we would have them AM cohorted AM, PM, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, for instance. And so we had 9 high schools running the Edgenuity program, and we had 465 students initially enrolled, and that accounted for 2,295 additional credits recovered over the summer. So that's a large number of credits that we were able to recover this summer. We're quite proud of that. Thank you to Kim Moses and our new coordinator, Christine Hatcher, for putting together this slide for CSACE. CSACE stands for Comprehensive Coordinated Early Intervention or Intervening Services. And the function is to serve students who have been significantly over-identified or that we've seen that disproportionality exists. West Contra Costa for the I messed myself up. Hold up, go back. For the 22-23 school year, worked with 4 schools to write a multi-tiered system of support plan to address and eliminate the identified disproportionality. Approximately 280 focal scholars across the 4 schools with tier 2, tier 3 academic support and or SDL support, including these summer enrichment programs. So we just wanted to highlight King, Lincoln, Ohlone with those summer programs focused on those students. In addition, our expanded learning program this year had 21 expanding learning sites overall. We wanted to give elementary families a full day summer program option. So this definitely was an expansion of past programs to offer enrichment and full day extension of the existing summer programs. And then summer funding included one-time only ESSER 3 funds, which allowed for the expansion of a middle school programming. In addition, that allowed us to have a summer Mesa Day. So on Monday, July 17th, 147 students from various elementary summer programs across the district came together for the summer Mesa competition at Korematsu Middle School. So we're quite proud of that. And you can see there with those photos, just how excited those kids were and how great a program that was. Oh yeah, thank you. Next slide. And so that was the one I was that's the Mesa Day. So next slide. Thank you. The Expanded Learning Office is also working with an external evaluator, SPR, and will have a summer 23 program memo that will include program-specific demographic data for students, attendance, and youth and family survey data by September 18th, 2023. So wanted to highlight that. And then this speaks a bit about the ESSER 3 funding. So overall, again, just thank you for allowing us to come and talk about our summer programming this year. There were a lot of students being supported and getting what they needed. We're quite proud of that. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Do we have any public comment on this item?
Yes, we do. Our first public comment is Angela Silver Lima. Please unmute yourself.
Good evening. My name is Angela Silver Lima. I just want to apologize. I meant to get an email out to you all talking about how great the summer program was. My kindergartner was enrolled at Obama, and I ended the school year last year really stressed out and upset. He's unable to write. He was unable to identify letters. He couldn't even put his own name on paper. And at the end of the 5 weeks of the summer program Springboard, he was able to identify letters, letter sounds. He could do consonant, vowel, consonant words, and he was able to write his name on his own without tracing. I saw huge growth for my child, and I just really want to thank the district for offering this program to our students. I know it really benefited my child. Thank you.
Our last public comment is Jean Kinster. Please unmute yourself.
Good morning, or good afternoon or evening, board. Over at Verde, I think it was the Headwater group. Those kids had a blast. They loved going on 2 field trips a week. They loved learning about everything. I really hope we can invite that group back because we had kids from all over the district and they just absolutely loved that program.
Thank you so much for our speakers. Board, do we have any questions? And we'll start with Clerk Smith-Foltz.
Thank you so much for the presentation. And both of our callers alluded to exactly what I was going to ask. Do we track the children who participated in the programs and how they have grown now throughout using the program and what they're doing now in school? Do we have a tracker or a mechanism to a survey, something to say, this is where you started, parents, tell me what you see the difference in?
Yeah, that's what I was speaking of with EduClimber. It's what we're building out right now. We're really excited because what we're looking at is tracking who was invited to summer school but didn't attend as a comparison point for those that were invited and did attend because of the way that we prioritize for student invitations. That should make for relatively similar comparison groups and really give us some rich data to look at the work that we did over summer school. And that will be for K-8. In addition, we're getting data from Springboard around the ELA and literacy instruction for our summer school elementary programs. So we are building that out as well as doing a similar program with CSAE. So we're looking at a bunch of different ways. And as EduClimber is new to our district and we're just learning it, we're building that out right now. We couldn't get it together for this particular presentation, but we should have that and are looking forward to sharing it.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry I missed that. Thank you so much. And then the next question, well, my final question is, in our district in the summertime, do we use Ingenuity only for credit recovery or do we use it for credit advancement?
We use it only for credit recovery. That is our purchase credit recovery. We don't offer advancement with an online platform over the summer.
Thank you so much. President Gonzalez-Hoy, I'm complete.
Thank you, Clerk Smith-Foltz. Trustee Reckler?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Sounds like it was a blast. Out of all the groups that you served, what was the total number of students that were eligible for the program and how many showed up? If that makes sense, like 800 eligible, 400 showed up, we captured 50%.
I'd like to be able to sit down and crunch the numbers and share that with you at a later date, just to make sure I can pull that together. Because we don't have an overall total of the invitations versus who showed up, or I don't have it prepared to be able to answer in this, but I can certainly share that on a spreadsheet with no problem.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear that. The next one, which is page 7, elementary program offerings, and it seems to be I just want to make sure that it's just by grade, by school. Yeah, I guess that's what it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
we were just trying to show the numbers of students that came and to highlight where there might be greater numbers of students that were attending either in school or in grades.
Yeah, any idea as to why this might gravitate for lower grades versus the 4, 5, 6s?
I just want to make sure I understand your question. You're asking, why are there greater numbers in the primary as opposed to the upper grades?
Yeah, and it may have to do with eligibility. You actually might have captured more at the 6th grade level, because you had fewer that were eligible, but I'm just curious if you've got any feedback on that.
I believe that both of those things are true. In my experience, we always see a tapering off as students get older. And there is a lot of interest around the primary grades. As the mother that just came on spoke to us, a lot of parents, especially coming out of the pandemic, have been very concerned about their kinder 1-2s. The big thing now is if students are able to read or write, literacy is a hot topic. So we did have the expectation that students K through 2 would be in large numbers. I want to say jokingly that the upper grades convinced their parents that they don't need to go. But in our prioritization, we had larger numbers of students that qualified in the primary grades than we did in the upper grade.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. My only question is, with ESSER funds going away, are we going to be able to provide this number of programs in the future?
We don't know. I would like to hope we'll be able to figure out because of just what a success this summer was. But it certainly is a concern and something that we're talking about. So I would like to hope so, but I certainly can't answer that at this point.
Okay, thank you. Okay, board, we're gonna move to comments. Does anyone have any comments? Trustee Reckler?
Yeah, so I am curious in that follow-up, just on the capture rate and how you advertise and market, to see if there's any pickup that you guys can do. And, because I think that'd be good to know and, figure out how to get more kids doing stuff during the summer. So thank you.
Thank you. Clerk Smith Folds?
I think for me, what I want to see is what happened in summer school that was so successful and how do we bring that to the classroom, right? We know summer school was successful. We know that kids enjoyed it. We know that food brings kids to the table. Like, what do we learn? What did we learn in summer school that we can then replicate in everyday school so we can keep attendance high, we can keep engagement high, we can have the same successes that the caller talked about in summer school can happen in the classroom during the school year. So that's kind of where I want to see us take this, is just take it and then use it for every kid in every part of the system, and then how we use those learnings. I'm complete.
Thank you, Clerk Smith Folds. Thank you so much for the presentation and for being here. We're gonna now move to F3, which is our human resources staffing update. Dr. Johnson, I believe that this is your item.
I need some new glasses, as you can tell. Thank you, board, once again for allowing me to share a staffing update. And I want to start out by just first thanking my HR team for welcoming me, but also working relentlessly to help gather data. And also the staffing committee, which Kim Chamberlain over there is involved in, our executive directors, members of cabinet, and also principals and other staff members who have met daily to look over numbers and make sure that we are in the best place to make the best decisions for our students. Okay, we're ready. Thank you. So the first slide I would like to share with you has to do with our certificated elementary teachers. What we were able to do was look at numbers from the last year and compare them to the current year. And our goal is to be evidence-based and data-driven as we move forward in making decisions around strategic plans for hiring. So as you can see, based on this information, last year we hired 76 teachers and this year it was 69. But more importantly, and what people are most concerned about, and as they should be, are the number of vacancies that we have this school year. The number has dropped a little bit, but for elementary certificated teachers only, we have 36 current vacancies. Next slide, please. And next we have our secondary teachers. And as you can see, compared to last year and this year, the number of teachers hired is just 2 teachers. There's a difference. However, the vacancies, you can see a drastic difference from 70 at the beginning of the school year to 21 this school year, meaning we have 21 vacancies, 21 teachers that we need in our secondary at various subject matters. Next slide, please. Substitute teachers. Substitute teachers is what we're currently seeking to help make this year successful. As of last year, at the beginning of the school year, 64 were hired. Beginning of this school year, we have 53 hired, and I can tell you that we have about 30 that we are currently processing, which means they have applied for a position, but there are required documents that are needed to hire them. It could be a TB test. It could be transcripts. It could be their fingerprints and background checks. So all of those things are required before we can hire them, but we are processing them as fast as we can. Next slide. And this slide is our special education. And because when we have an umbrella of special education, there are so many positions. I tried my best to break down the most positions that we are familiar with. You can see teachers that we hired last year and this year. Our SLPs are actually our speech and language teachers, psychologists, nurses, and program specialists. And program specialists can be responsible for many different areas with under special education. And teacher vacancies, last year 33, this year we have 18 vacancies specifically for our special education teachers that we are looking forward for recruitment. And an additional slide that I added was administrators. You can see the number of administrators that we hired last year compared to this year. And something that I think is important, especially when I've been doing research related to hiring practices and recruitment in our current state, is looking at promotions and promoting within people who have dedicated themselves to West Contra Costa and have learned the systems and are wanting to move on up. And those are our promotions. We also have teachers who have now gone into administration. Last year there were 8, this year we have 7 of them. And then our vacancies, we have 3 administrator vacancies currently at this moment. They're at, I left my paper. They're at Kennedy, Dijon, and Stige. And we actually have applicants in our pool and are holding interviews at the end of this week. I found it. I actually had to. Appreciate you. Liz is my right hand man or woman. And classified staff, just as important as teachers are our classified staff. And often people aren't having that understanding that classified staff is a large part of the district population and employees. So for our classified staff, I've listed the highest position needs. These are positions where we had the most vacancies. Our paraprofessionals, our food service workers, gardeners, and elementary playground supervisors. And as someone who has been a principal in several different sites at elementary, middle, and high school, I will tell you right now that a school cannot run without these classified employees. They are essential to the success of students and schools. Our hires, you can see this year have gone up. Our vacancies have decreased. And our paraprofessionals are instructional aides who are giving direct support to our students. And we have hired 204 this year. I will tell you that, is Guthrie here? Under the leadership of Guthrie and also CAO Sonia Neely Johnson. Sorry, we have partnered with an organization that is providing 200 paraprofessionals. We are bringing them in. We have brought in 39 and we are continuing to process them so that we can fill these vacancies. And lastly, I just wanted to share with you some recruitment strategies. And I will tell you, as someone who is being new to this district, but has spent the last 3 years consulting with districts all over this country, within California, also San Diego, LA Unified, and other districts, including West Contra Costa. This is an important topic. It's an important topic because, as you may know, there is a shortage statewide, a shortage nationwide. And often the conversation is, what are you doing to recruit teachers? What is everyone doing? We're all competing for the same thing, to have the best people in our classrooms. And coming in, my job is to, one, observe and see what West Contra Costa has been doing, but now start to question, why are we doing that? Is that the best thing for us to do? And what evidence supports that the decisions we have made are actually having an impact in our district? And so I have listed some recruitment strategies that I have been discussing with our team. But I will tell you, as we start to implement these recruitment strategies, we are reviewing and discussing whether or not they are effective and really making a difference. If we are not getting a return from that strategy, we are not going to continue it. If we continue to fly all over the country and go to recruitment fairs, but we don't get anyone hired as a result of that, it's not necessary for us to continue that strategy. So what we have listed here is attending job fairs, social fairs, and festivals, because what I have learned in my research is that the best employees come from your community. So it's important for us to be visible in the community. We are actually have a job fair set up for San Jose tomorrow. It's not directly within the community, but it's still close enough where we may be able to recruit some people. We're involving we're re-innovating our outreach approaches and social media strategies. We just had a recent virtual job fair, and all of the people who came as a result of that job fair, about 2/3 of them came from social media, and then 1/3 of them came from word of mouth directly from other employees within our district. So if we can combine the two, we know that that can help us be more visible. And especially if we can start to shine a light on, this is a great place to work. West Contra Costa is a place you want to be. So if we can start to highlight those things, I think that can help us make a difference. Of course, continuing our advertising, but also considering advertising in non-traditional ways that we have done in the past. If you are familiar with EdJoin, which is the most popular way for all districts in California to post positions, it's not necessarily helping us with our classified staff. And we're aware of that. And now we want to look at other avenues of how we can hire people. We're also understanding that our applicants need support with testing, support with completing an application, and we're coming up with ways to provide that support to them. Again, job fairs, updating our job boards with open positions so that they're accurate and current. We have a recruitment task force because one thing we know that one mind can come up with a solution or a strategy, two minds can come up with more. But when you have a room full of people, the amount of ideas that can be created from their perspectives is something that is helpful and needed. And lastly, and this is something that I have been finding from several different districts, and recently even saw it on the California Department of Education, is partnering with available retirees. Now, we have had some retirees come back to our district this year. Others we have called, they're on vacation, living their best life and have declined. But we are very appreciative for those who decided to come back this year and support our students. That is the conclusion that I have for this staffing update, but I would gladly take questions that you may have.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Do we have any public comment on this item?
No public. You have a public comment.
Thank you.
Zalon Harrison, please unmute yourself.
Yes, I just wanted to know, a lot of the things are wonderful that we're doing, but to ensure that there is consistent equity, I just want to know, are we using the equity audit with all these wonderful things we're doing to ensure that there's consistent equity in all our decision making? That's a question I would like to ask. Thank you, I'm complete.
Thank you.
Our next public comment is Jean Kinster. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you. I wanted to suggest to the board that they might look into Teach Start. It's a program like TFA, And I know our school had picked up a teacher to teach in our classroom. Teach Start is very interested in partnering with WCC USD to get teachers into the classroom. Last year, this teacher that they hired over the summer was a roving sub that Teach Start, the state paid for their salary that year. And this year they're on our payroll as a teacher. It might be something to look into.
Thank you so much to our two callers. Board, we're now going to move to questions. Does anybody have questions? Trustee Reckler?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. How are you defining a vacancy? And is it truly vacant, like no one is in the classroom? And if so, like how are you patching over that if it exists?
Yes, a vacancy is defined as there are students in the classroom and we do not have a full-time hired person in that position. So currently, right now in our vacancies, we have a substitute teacher, or as you have heard tonight, we have some temporary reassigned employees who are in those positions until we are able to fill them with a qualified person or a long-term sub.
So how many are like no one, there's nothing, there's no sub, there's no collapsed class, there's no reassignment, like how many are in that bucket?
Yeah, on paper, we do not have any of those. There will be a day, perhaps we have a substitute teacher who perhaps did not show up, but we have enough employees within our district that we could have a temporary person go into that classroom.
Okay, thank you. Next is every job, site level, central office, gardener, custodian, you name it, is every job that's open posted?
Is every job open posted? The jobs that are needed at the moment would be posted. So perhaps we've had a position for quite a while that's no longer necessary. Maybe it's in maintenance and facilities. We may still have that job, but it may not be posted if it's not needed.
Okay, so then everything that you need is posted.
Yes, as long as the school site or department sends that request into HR, we do post the position.
Okay, thank you. And then you
And
didn't,
Trustee Reckler, that was
was, okay.
it's okay. You can ask one more, just FYI.
Okay, the next one is, you didn't mention anything about central office, I don't believe. So how many vacancies do you have in your central office function?
You know, I did not provide that number. The focus was on meeting the needs of our students. So I could get that number to you because we do have vacancies in our various departments within the central office.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a clarifying question. Would you like that by position? I mean, excuse me, by department? Okay,
Whatever's easier, sure.
thank you.
Clerk Smith Foltz?
Thank you so much for the presentation. Can you run me through the timelines? So I apply for a job on EdJoin. And then what's the timeline to where I'm onboarded and into the position? And let's just stick with like teaching, because every position has a different type of onboarding. Okay.
Correct.
So can you give me kind of like the airplane view of what a timeline would look like?
Yeah, so like you said, every position has a different timeline. So let's give an example is if we post a teaching position, that position could be posted for 5 to 10 days. And at that time, when the position closes, the hiring person for that position is notified that you have applicants and you can begin the interview process. Now, the exact time frame would depend on how quickly we can get the interviews scheduled with the requesting person and getting their team together. They interview and then they contact HR with the applicant that they would like to hire. At that moment, HR, we're still working on the timeline. My goal would be within 24 hours, we contact that that applicant and let them know that a position has been offered to them. What people often aren't aware of is once that happens, there are often requirements that the applicants need to get back to us, as I stated earlier. Once we have all of those required materials, they can start working. So exact time frame, it's hard for me to nail that down, but that is one of my goals this year as I enter into this role, is to shorten that time frame.
Thank you so very much. President Gonzalez-Hoy, I just have comments. I'm complete.
Thank you. Okay, let's move to our comments, since I don't see any more hands. Thank you so much, Dr. Johnson, for your presentation. Let's start with Clerk Smith-Folds.
Thank you so much. We all know that HR is kind of the heartbeat of the district. So human resources is one of those things that we have to be very intentional about when we're talking about policy strategies. How do we retain, recruit, and support all of our employees? So I thank you for being so diligent. I thank your team that was here before you got here about laying the foundation for the work that you're coming into now. Thank you so much. My biggest concern is that timeline, because we lose so many applicants between them saying yes to us and them being onboarded with us. So that's one of my concerns. The other concern I have is not just for our employees, but our volunteers. So how long does it take for a volunteer to get on, be a mentor to where they can able to get their badge, right? So these are things that I would like to bring out to the forefront and have more discussion around so we can really streamline that and actually help our candidates too. I know when I worked for the district, it was really hard to get my transcript all the way from Alabama to make sure that it had the seal on it, it wasn't open, and all of those steps that you're talking about. So as much training around that for new candidates as possible, I think would also help retain them and let them stick through the process. Thank you so very much for all your hard work. Thank you to the team that was with you and is now with you and that was here before, and we appreciate you. I'm complete.
Thank you, Clerk Smith-Folds. Trustee Reckler?
Thank you. So I want to say thank you to everybody. It has definitely been a much better opening this year than last year. So really kudos to everyone. I mean, certainly there are some soft spots, but in light of nationwide challenges around public education, I mean, I think that everybody should be really proud of how hard everybody worked and how we opened. So this is very good. I also am very passionate about HR. I'm sure you will hear from me. So get ready. And I would also like to hear at another time on the teacher partnerships, Kristen Loy's work, residency programs and that stuff about what we're doing. And, you know, some things come through like memorandums of understanding come through from universities, but I don't really have a big picture of that work. So I'd like to see them at some point. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Reckler. For my comments, I want to thank HR because obviously compared to last year, we are in a much better place. So I want to thank you and your team for the work you've all been doing in the last few weeks. I want to also thank our TOSAs and our central staff who are currently in the classroom. I know that that is not what they signed up for this year. And we heard from speakers, including UTR, that the transition is hard, right? Thinking all summer that you're going to be doing one job and then within one day or a few days, right, you get transitioned into the classroom. It's tough. So I want to thank all those individuals who are doing that. I wish we could just send you back to the work that you're supposed to be doing, but you are serving an incredible, important piece so that our students are served with someone who's credentialed. So I want to thank all of you out there who are listening. We also had a speaker who asked about Teach Start. I did want to clarify that it was a strategy that Dr. Johnson and Dr. Hurst looked at, but unfortunately was way too expensive. The charge that they were going to give us per teacher, it was not worth the price. I mean, teachers are worth it, but it was not fiscally, we weren't able to pay it. So I did want to just clarify that. And then El Sobrante Stroll is around the corner. So that would be a community event that I recommend that we have a table at. Because a lot of people walk up and down that street So I just wanted to plug that.
Thank you.
Because it was one of your strategies, so that's great. Thank you. That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, staff, we're gonna move, staff, excuse me, board, we're gonna now move to C10, which is pulled by trustee Reckler. It's our last item before comments. So trustee Reckler, pass to you.
Yeah, I just pulled it so that you would tell us and the general public what City Committee on Community Schools is.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for doing that. So Mr. Price, who is consulting with our cities, they decided to create a subcommittee on how to support our schools and our focus on community schools specifically. So they're gonna be meeting once a month. They asked us to appoint one representative. And then Dr. Hurst is going to be the staff representative to that as well. Each mayor of the city is going to be sitting in that committee. And then I believe that they all appointed either the city manager or assistant city manager to that committee. So our focus is going to be, I think, if you all approve me to be part of that committee, to not just present the work that we're doing, but really try to expand on the partnerships that currently exist, especially with focus on what the city of San Pablo is doing in the schools in San Pablo, which you all know is amazing. They give us over $300,000 a year for community schools work. And my hope is that through showing that work, our other cities will be also willing to partner with us in that way, and in other ways that we might be able to focus on that. So that's kind of, I think, the idea. And it hasn't met yet. And as soon as we are approved, they were just waiting for our appointment, and then we will start meeting. And then the reason, just so you know, the reason why I appoint myself, I already do a lot of community schools work statewide within CTA. So that's why, if it's okay with you, I wanted to appoint myself to that, which I did remove myself from the strategic plan committee because obviously we're all doing a lot, but Clerk Smith Folds said she was willing to take that on. So I just wanted to provide that explanation as well. Also, I think that 3 of you emailed me asking to be put in that committee, and I really didn't know how to make that choice. So that's why I appointed myself to it as well, because apart from drawing from a hat, I didn't really know how to make that decision. And I will absolutely report as to you all on the work that the committee does. And then the strategic plan committee, you all know what that one's about with Dr. Hurst. Do you have any other questions, Trustee Reckler?
That's it. With that, I'll move C10 board member committee appointments, City Committee on Community Schools, President Gonzalez, and Strategic Plan Committee, Clerk Smith Folds.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone have any comments on this one? Okay, let's move to a vote. Clerk Smith Folds, we'll start with you.
Smith Folds, yes.
Trustee Christian,
Yes.
Trustee Reckler,
Reckler, yes.
Trustee Phillips,
Yes.
Trustee Cypressett,
Yes.
Trustee Caleb,
Yes.
I'm so sorry for that. And I'm a yes as well. Passed unanimously. Thank you. Okay, now we're gonna move to comments from the board. We're doing really well on time, so we can put up 3 minutes on those who want to make comments. So I'll wait for staff. And would anyone like to get us started on comments? Would our student trustees like to say anything as your first board meeting? Trustee Caleb?
Yeah, I'd like to say it's an honor to honestly be a student trustee for this semester, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to serve for like the student community. And just really short, I'd like to honestly, I can't wait for the journey ahead of me being a student trustee.
Thank you so much. Trustee Cypressett?
I also agree with what Tristan said. I'm really excited and honored for this opportunity to play a bigger role in my community. I'm excited to gain knowledge and information and more depth of understanding on what's going on around me, and especially the people around me and what's happening and everything in that area. I hope I can make an impact and use my voice for good things.
Thank you so much. Board, anyone like to make comments? Trustee Phillips, we'll start from you and we'll go this way.
Thank you. I just want to welcome everyone back this school year and say thank you to the staff for all of the work that they have done to get schools up and ready for the beginning of this year. Also want to say thank you to all the parents who, one way or another, are getting their children to school, and for the kids, including my own, who are engaging. I think that every new school year is an opportunity to do something great. I think everybody has the opportunity to do something great, regardless of what role they play. There is an opportunity for greatness in everything. So as people move forward this school year, I really just want to encourage people to keep that in mind. And that doesn't mean that, things will be perfect. That doesn't mean that, every time you swing the bat, you will knock the ball out of the park. But I encourage you, and this is to students, this is to parents, this is the staff, to keep swinging. When we talk about people like Babe Ruth, he struck out. And people don't remember that. They remember all those balls that he knocked over the wall because he kept swinging. And I think you have to have the courage and the fortitude to do that. The other thing that I wanted to say about the cabinet, one, I do appreciate, and I said this privately, but I want to say it publicly, I do appreciate you all making space for me to do the agenda previews after I get off of work. I really do appreciate that very much. And I'm very thankful for your time. But I also want to say that, and when I say this, I'm not implying that you didn't before, okay? So I want to put this in context. You guys seem to work very well together. And there is a cohesion that I have not seen previously. And I want to acknowledge that. And I want to say that I recognize that. And that is very good for our students. So I just want to say I see it. If other people have not seen it, I do. And I really like it. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Phillips. Trustee Reckler?
Great, thank you very much. So I want to welcome our new student trustees. Welcome. I'm looking forward to getting to know you. And I know your contributions will be thoughtful and appreciated. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then again, I just want to echo the comments that I made before. Welcome everybody back and say thank you for a really great opening. People worked really hard and I can see it. And, we obviously have challenges statewide, nationwide, but it really was very strong opening. And everything seems to be patched over. There may be a few Band-Aids and dental floss holding things together, but really, it's really much improved from last year, and I'm very appreciative and looking forward to seeing everybody out there on campus. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Reckler. Trustee Christian?
Yeah, I'd like to say welcome to our new student trustees. Welcome aboard, and you in for a ride. Then I want to just say welcome back to everybody. And our staff who have put together a well-presented information, and we have a good team ready to, start this school year off right, and that we can make some things happen. And also, I'd like to say, if you're homegrown, it's a difference from the outside and then those on the inside. And that means a lot because you care and you want to see the things happen. You have more of a passion and a drive to make things happen. And so I want to say welcome back to everybody in the district. to all of our principals and classified staff and teachers, to everybody, our students, welcome back. Stay out of trouble. Don't find good trouble. Stay away from bad trouble. If you want to get in something, find good trouble. And let's have a productive school year, no fighting, all that stuff. Everybody, let's work together. Teamwork makes the dream work. And so when we work together as a team, things happen. Stop talking about people, but if you got something, go to that person and resolve your issues. And then you move forward from there and move on. So I just want to say, even to the board, we all are here. And the superintendent, I appreciate everybody. I've been through a lot. I was in the hospital. I'm recovering. I'm trying to keep moving. And I know a higher power that keeps me moving. So, but I just want to say to everybody at large and everywhere, keep moving and do what's right. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Christian. Clerk Smith Folds?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, President Gonzalez-Hoy, for, again, a really timely meeting. I appreciate that. Thank you, staff, for all your presentations and answering our questions. Thank you to the board for doing the work, and welcome to the governance team. I have to be in full transparency. I know Tristan from Hercules Middle School, so that's great. He was an excellent volleyball player, which is also great. We have 173 days left. I do the countdown because I think it's important. So what are we going to do with the next 173? Because the reality is you're in the year planning for the next year. So we are already should be planning for what we want to see in 24, 25. So I want us all to stay focused on that and make sure that we are moving towards that goal. We heard tonight that SPSAs are done in one time and then they're implemented in another time. They're done in the spring, they're implemented in the fall, and they're a living document. So that living document means that it has to have people who are invested in it. So please be a part of your SSC, your school site council. Please get involved with your APACs. Please get involved with your ELACs. And these are to all parents and community members. These are open meetings that you can go to, and they're very important. SSC is one of the most important parent and community organizations that we have inside our district, because they really do look at the money. I'm happy that we saved the taxpayers' money. I'm looking forward to that write-up that we can share with our community about exactly what they can see. HR, thank you so much for showing us where we are and keeping us very clear about where we need to go. Thank you, President Gonzalez-Hoy, for mentioning all the work of the individuals that had reassignment. It is not easy to have a plan in your mind and then have to switch and execute something else. So thank you to all those who have said yes to reassignment. Dr. Hurst, I would like to say that we need some collective understanding around our TK program. These are the youngest learners and they get a fresh start in our district, and we have so much work that we can do with them, and we have so much power in those younger learners, and including our preschool. We have amazing preschool programs out in our district that I really want to get more of an understanding around. Thank you for all those who presented about summer school. Summer school looked like it was excellent. It was an enriching program to see. I would like to know more about how academically it advanced our students. And I think that that comes through what you guys are doing with giving us that information back from the tracking. That's it in the last 18 seconds. Remember, get badged, be part of the SSC, the PTA, the PTOs, the APAC, the ELAC, your climate teams. If you are an elementary school parent or secondary parent, bring in snacks, wipes, tissues, paper towels. All of that stuff comes out of the teachers' pockets and the admin's pockets. So reach out and ask them what they need help with. I'm complete. Happy school year.
Thank you so much, Clerk Smith Folds. Okay, for my comments, I'll try to be as quick as possible. First, we wanted to thank teacher Jean Marie Aceturo for broadcasting tonight's meeting on KECG 88.1 FM. Thank you so much for doing that and listening tonight. I also wanted to give kudos to 3 departments that we usually don't bring up or talk about very much, but Logan, I want to thank your department because as I've been visiting sites, teachers are so excited about our new technology. And I've been seeing it almost at every classroom, teachers utilizing the new technology. And it has, a lot of them have told me like, I wasn't excited for it and I like changed my mind overnight as soon as I started using it. So thank you, because I think it's making a big difference. Communications, Ms. Sanders, I think the communication this school year as we started has been really great. So I also want to give you and your team kudos because as crises have come up, as they always do, your team has stepped up and done that. And Mr. Booker, I also want to thank your team because safety is always one of our top priorities, and you and your team have worked really hard over the summer and the beginning of the school year to keep our students safe. So I want to also thank your team. That's not to say every single one of you cabinet members doesn't deserve that, but I just want to point at them because we usually don't thank those departments. I wanted to lift that up. But thank you for everyone because it has felt like a really good start. I know that probably people who are in the classroom, like the toast and all that, probably don't feel that yet, but it has felt like a much smoother start to the school year. The best one I think I felt since I came on the board. And I think that's the collective work that everybody's doing, including and especially at the school sites, right? But obviously with the leadership, what Trustee Phillips mentioned about cabinet working together for the first time, I completely agree with that. I feel it, I see it. And I think that it shows in the daily work and just the opening of school. So let's keep that up because I think that when you all work in silos, there's miscommunication, right? All that mistrust, all those things, which I think you guys are breaking through that barrier. So thank you. And thank you, Dr. Hurst, for your leadership through that as well and guiding our cabinet members as well. And congratulations to you on tonight's approval for your contract. I wanted to just give you that huge appreciation for that work. Thank you. And then lastly, all of the staff is still here. Thank you for hanging out with us tonight. Okay, our next board meeting is September 6th, 2023. I don't know why I said that, at Dijon. So see you all in 2 weeks. Thank you so much. I adjourn us at 9:25.